It is Cash Friday, and on this day, we go to our bank or credit union and draw out a shocking amount of money, a shocking amount. And that is a $100 bill. I'm holding here in my hand a 1973 piece of scrip, bank scrip. It's called a Federal Reserve note, and it's not a lawful bill because it doesn't, the words on it don't make any legally binding promise. It just says that you can trade this bill in for other bills that have the same type of wording on them, vacuous words that are not don't give you a claim to something of value. Right? It used to be that a bill that looked like this would let you go into any bank and say, I want to have some money, because a bill is not money, right? Money would be a silver coin or silver coins. This right here has 100 written on it. So it would give you a claim, an entitlement. It was an entitlement to claim and take possession of 100 silver dollars or 100 actual coins that are called dollars, measured in the weight, the dollar weight, and holding in them a real value. Though to say that silver money has an inherent value, there's a problem there that I won't try to get into here. But we could say in pencil anyway that these coins have inherent value, but these bills don't. They're banknotes, and though we understand the fault, the constitutional fault, and even the moral fault, the fault that God has against them, right? God sees a fault in depreciating varying weights. We can celebrate Cash Friday because even though we're not given lawful coin and currency anymore, which doesn't circulate, we can still use cash to defeat in some small way the tapeworm economy machinery of the magic plastic, the plastic card, which when the local shop's customer uses, that shop has to pay a tax, the tapeworm tax, of anywhere between 2 and maybe 5%. If it's Amex, it's a gigantic fee that transaction generates for the banking cartel that issues the cartels that issue that card and others like it. The name is David Toulis. Local economy and the free market is what we argue for. I make an argument called local economy, and if in the Christian world, people such as Michael Rhodes in Memphis, and a local author would call it practicing the king's economy, and that would be lococentric dealings, thinking that somehow where you live is the center of the universe. And if you're a Christian, Robbie Holt would say, well, your economics needs to be local, and it has to have the right scale. We have to have a scale connection with people with whom we do business and people who we think might need some charitable assistance, right? And it's a great book, by the way, Practicing the King's Economy by Robbie Holt and Michael Rhodes. And it argues, it's called Practicing the King's Economy. It argues that there shouldn't be soup kitchen, there should be a potluck kitchen. And that poor people who are often the recipients of donations, whether food or money or lodgings, really have a lot to offer. And so we need to find a way in our charitable efforts to give them occasion to give back, right? Even a homeless person has something of value. Often it's knowledge, a long career in a certain field, and here this person is homeless, can't use these skills, and is somehow always just receiving and begging and not really contributing to the local economy. So how do we have a better, richer local economy? And that book, Practicing the King's Economy, it gives a terrific outline of how people who are professing Christians and others can use the principles in the scriptures, including the gleaning concept, to have a vibrant economy where even the poorest people, even the homeless people, are contributors and investors, right? At some point, they're investors, and they can be even kind of mini capitalists if they have the right kind of encouragement, the right kind of social capital sent their way. And it is Cash Friday, and so we want to just celebrate the use of the green rectangle, as I call it. The green rectangle here is I'm holding up a Ben Franklin bill. Ben proposed that the turkey be the national bird, but of course there were globalist financial interests, occultic interests no less, who wanted to have the eagle, the imperial eagle, that was used by Rome, was used later by by the National Socialists in Germany, aka Adolf Hitler, right? That bird has not ever worn out its imperial charms, even for the Americans. So that we have our eagles. Ben thought the turkey was much more profitable. Not, it may have been a dirty bird, but eagles are pretty dirty too. And you can eat a turkey. Though you really probably wouldn't want to eat an eagle. David Tool is here, 800-8949, 800-8949. And no, it doesn't really matter whom I might have voted for yesterday, though I think Bill Lee was probably the best candidate, and he won, I would say, by a pretty large margin. He got 24%. He got 37% of the vote in the Republican primary. Randy Boyd, the sort of executive fascist type person, he got 24%. Diane Black, 23, and Beth Harwell, the Rhino Republican, the Speaker of the House, she got 15%. She's the one who brought a tax increase on the gas tax. So she made all kinds of claims. Perhaps her best argument was the decriminalization of cannabis, but that didn't really carry her very far. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949, and things are said in county government. Jim Coppinger remains at the helm of the executive branch in the county. He got 33,500, and Eloise Brown, 22. I saw a picture of her yesterday standing under, I guess, the homosexual rainbow flag. I take it that that's what she meant to suggest with her image there. She gave a little presentation about coming out to vote, and not that it could be either the flag for gay rights or represent an umbrella representing that flag, or an umbrella representing the promise of God to Noah and all of his descendants. Now, I'm not sure which one Eloise Brown referred to. I mean, it is an ambiguous symbol, and if we can just encourage Christians to be a little more heartier, a little bit bolder, they can claim back that multicolored rainbow for God's glory once again, right? Because the rainbow is a picture of God's judgment on the whole world. It came after the flood that destroyed the whole world, except for 4 couples, right? Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives. Those are the only people who survived the cataclysm that altered the whole geography of the planet, and also the weather, God ordaining things to happen there in space and time and at a planetary scale. And that rainbow is a picture of the judgment of God, but it's also a picture of God's mercy. So maybe Eloise Brown, in that last stab at the electorate, was maybe she was saying something about God's mercy and connecting herself with that. Though I think we'll have to ask her, if you think it's important, ask her if that helped her get some of the 22,000 votes that she won against Jim Coppinger's 33,500. Warren Mackey, in another race to note here, running to keep his seat on the county commission, one that he's had for about 12 years now. His challenger was Chris Dahl, who had a fifth of the number at about 565. Chris Dahl 565, and Warren Mackey 2,500 and some. So Chris Dahl took no donations and did not really. He was not a man whom one had the sense was being on the campaign. He was not a campaigner, and his perspective is a kind of libertarian perspective. He runs a history website. He's married with a son. His wife, I believe in that couple, brings or his girlfriend, I think with whom he cohabits, has the income in that house. But Chris, whom I would see at city council meetings, was never giving the sense that he's in a race. He just didn't give that sense of being in a war, if you will, for the voters' minds and handshakes in that district. So Warren Mackey handily won. Chris not taking money. I don't know what kind of signs he had. I confess I haven't seen a single one, so I take it he did not have any signs out, but was on the ballot anyway. And in the sheriff's race, Victor Miller, that's his name. The unknown candidate's name is Victor Miller, won 20,000 votes and some. And Jim Hammond, the sheriff Republican, got 34,650. So it was 34-20 in the sheriff's race. And my own analysis has all, since we do favor the idea of the sheriff as opposed to the idea of corporation police departments, we have a kind of a common law orientation. I would always say, well, you want to have someone in the sheriff position who connects with the people and has as little military type and police type experience as possible. And here Victor Miller is a detective in the Chattanooga Police Department. And so that is, I would say, kind of a strike against him, because his whole perspective is the policing perspective. Here's the contrast. Okay. A police officer is involved in policing and law enforcement, and the sheriff is involved in law enforcement and peacekeeping. It's a different function, and there's room for reform, I would suggest, in sheriffing, though there's much less room for reform in policing, though policing is under increasing stress to reform and to end or at least slow down and pull back the kind of arbitrary violence for which it has become very, very well known, and much loved, of course, among some people who are likely to have voted for Randy Boyd, the Randy Boyd crowd, where there's a kind of police state appeal, the appeal to fear. And when I saw Randy Boyd's commercial, I just resented them, because he was appealing to the dread of living not in a police state, right? He was proposing a police state and evoking in the viewer the fear of not having all that security and protection, right? That was what he was trying to accomplish in that ad, run repeatedly, probably with millions of dollars spent in its production and airing, trying to convince us that we have to live in fear and we have to have a strong law enforcement-oriented government. Bill Lee didn't have any of that. Bill Lee did not appeal to fear at all. And I really am surprised how well he did. I'm just not clear why. And it could be that he's a businessman, he's an outsider, he's not a professional politician, has not been on the state payroll. And those I think won very well among people who didn't hear any negative press from him about his opponents. And so if this is, this is kind of valuable. Joe Smith won against Miracle Hurley, and I did dip into to hearing a little bit more about that race by talking with both Joe and Miracle Hurley. Joe got 4,300 votes, and Miracle got about 2,000 votes. So he did twice as well as she did. She was the modern, the modern liberal candidate, young, much younger, female, with diverse views on sexual mores than Joe Smith. Joe Smith would have a traditional, even Christian perspective on sexual mores and practices. Miracle, a very modern, post Obergefell ruling, post gay rights ruling American single mom, you could say, but though she's married to a female. Those things did not come out in the race, but so we can't say that they were things that helped her or hurt Miracle Hurley, though they were part of the story. And I think she just didn't win on account of Joe Smith being so long known and so well known in Chattanooga. And of course, Chuck Fleischman held his position in the Republican primary with 79% of the votes, and Danielle Mitchell was the only Democrat. She got 30,900 some votes, about half of Chuck Fleischman in that separate primary. And the anger of the office seeker, the kind of bitter denunciation appeals from Jonathan Mason may have hurt him. And Esther Helton here in East Ridge did very well against him, though it was, well, let's say she did well. Okay, very well is saying too much, but she held out and won by 140 votes. She received 3,507 votes, and Jonathan Mason, a Republican activist and works in the insurance business, won 3,367 votes. That's a difference of 140. So Esther Helton, who didn't play dirty, won. She's on the city council in East Ridge, and she's respectable. I suppose she's conservative. And Jonathan Mason bitterly attacking her, even going out of his way to attack the tax assessor, Marty Haynes, in a last-minute flyer that I can't understand what kind of political advice he got. I mean, Jonathan Mason, who's been active for a long time in conservative politics, is dealing with the issues and his opponent in ugly ways. It's simply ugly to attack the tax assessor and allege that here the tax assessor played favorites with Esther Hilton. And how Marty, it's ridiculous to think that Marty Haynes, whose job is entirely in the public, everything he does is in the public, is all about the public record. It's about the assessment of taxes based on valuations. His office is responsible for not the value of the property, but the valuation. That is to say, the guess by inspectors of what the property is worth for taxation purposes. And there's just simply no way that a favor could have been done for Esther Hilton by Marty Haynes. And for Jonathan Mason to say something about that is simply grotesque. It is a grotesque effort to smear the opponent and not be about the issues. And meanwhile, in that race, Joda Tonopnua, the Democrat, had a very high position in his last-minute declarations to the voters. And I don't have here what he got. He said, "Make sure to write me in." I'm sure he got some thousands of votes, though he had no competition in the primary, the Democrat primary for that East Ridge area House seat in the state legislature. So I would say that Jonathan Mason violated the local economy tenet, and that would be that there really shouldn't be anger, bitterness, and accusations like that, especially when the accusation was oblique. In other words, to make Esther Hilton look bad, Jonathan Mason had to attack the tax assessor and hope that somehow some of the grit that landed on the tax assessor, Marty Haynes, would bounce off and spatter maybe the ankles and shoes of Esther Hilton, which I don't know that anybody would have been impressed by that line of argument. So we have Esther Hilton facing Joda Tonopnua, the young Democrat East Ridge resident, the son, the American-born son, kind of a liberal progressive of one Thai immigrant, and his mother, I think he said, a preacher's daughter, has an Italian background. So that's Joda's career. He was a UTC student and has been now for 3 years working in a kind of a nonprofit organization with a kind of data mining perspective. In other words, let's mine the data of city government and produce useful studies. A group that may have taken over from the Ox Center that David Eichenthal ran here for several years. And I'm not sure why the Ox Center somehow lost its place, may have lost its funding. And so since that time of its closure, Joda Tonopnua took over that civic kind of civic data function. Well, my name is David Toulis, and the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And I give short shrift to the election results, partly because I want to suggest to you what a local economy, a loco-centric perspective is on state elections. Now, local elections are much more important. And if I could do better as a journalist, please let me know. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. I didn't really cover in print at Nuganomics. I did not really cover these local races, but I did touch on some of the candidates here. We did hear from Chris Dahl and Warren Mackey, and we did hear from Joda. And also there was one school board race I touched on just very lightly with an interview of each party. But that's kind of limited. You could say it's kind of faulty, not really being loco-centric enough. It seems like, David Toulis, if you're going to be loco-centric, you should have had all the local candidates on your show at some point and gotten them all in for the benefit of the listener. But as I hear that kind of suggestion, I'm asking myself, is that really just? What do you need? And I want to suggest the following as to why maybe, if it is a fault, it's not a big one on my part here, David Toulis. And that is because I want you to think that the problems that we have in our district, in our in our county, in our part of Tennessee, the southeast corner, here at the bend in the Tennessee River, is not a problem solvable by politics. It's not solvable by changing the face of people in these institutions that either enforce law or ordinance or write it. The solution to our malaise, the answers to becoming national economic disaster are not in government. In fact, if we look to government as solutions to these threats, these impositions on liberty, these oppressions of prosperity, we're not going to have the answers. I think I want to have private, lococentric, free market answers here on the David Toulis Show. And now I've got some important announcements. Thank you, David Toulis.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
The latest election results, according to News Channel 9, showed Jim Coppinger won county